Most box truck owner operators really have no idea how much it costs to run them just 1 mile. And that's a big problem, because if you don't know your cost per mile, you're not running a business. You're guessing. You're hoping you're making money. Today, I'm going to break down what cost per mile actually is, why it's the most important number in your business, and how knowing it can literally put thousands more dollars in your pocket every single month. So cost per mile is exactly what it sounds like. It's the total amount it costs to operate your truck for 1 mile. Now that's not just fuel. It includes fixed costs like insurance, your truck payment or lease, if you pay yourself a salary, licensing and permits. Then you have to figure in your variable costs like maintenance and repairs, tires, tolls, even dispatch fees, even things like factoring fees. Those are all variable costs. So you take all those expenses over a certain period, let's say a month. You add them up, divide that by the total miles that you drove that month, and that's your cost per mile. So let's say your total monthly expenses is $8,000 and you drove 8,000 miles. Then your cost per mile is pretty simple. It's $1. So if it's $1.60, that means every single mile that you drove costs you $1.60 to run. So knowing your cost per mile is critical because it's the baseline for your rates. So if your cost per mile is $1.60 and you're hauling for, say, $1.75, you're making about 15 cents per mile profit. And that's before tax. That's why so many box truck owners feel like they're working nonstop, but never have any money left over at the end of the month. They're running loads that feel like a good amount in the moment, but actually they're just breaking even, a lot of times even losing money. So when you know your cost per mile, you can stop taking loads just to stay busy. You start making decisions based on profit, not on panic. So here's the magic. Once you know that baseline, you can set a minimum rate per mile that ensures every single mile you drive is putting money in your pocket. Most drivers never calculate it because they think it's complicated, and it really is not. They don't track their expenses closely enough. A lot of guys just go out there and think that their rate per load and think, well, that's $800 for the day. I'm good. But if it took 500 miles to earn that $800 and your cost per mile is $1.60, you cleared 80 cents per mile in profit. That's $400, and that's before taxes and emergencies. When you have your cost per mile dialed in, it changes everything. You can say no to loads without fear. You can negotiate with brokers because you know exactly what it takes to make your load worth your time. And you can focus on lanes and routes that will pay you more instead of charging a cheap rate and cheap freight. So let's say you find out your cost per mile, and let's go back to the $1.60. You decide your minimum rate is $2.50 per mile. On a 500-mile week, that's an extra $450 you've put in your pocket compared to hauling it at $2 per mile. So multiply that over a month, and you just gave yourself a $1,800 raise without driving 1 extra mile. We can help you with that. So if you're a box truck owner-operator and you don't know your cost per mile, you're flying blind. It costs you real money. All right, so I put together a simple cost per mile calculator. It's a load selection strategy that shows you exactly how to earn $3 per mile and more. So if you want it, DM me CPM, which is short for cost per mile, all right? And I will get it out to you today. So stop guessing, start profiting, because in trucking, it's not how many miles you run, it's how much you make per mile.